to continue.
Okay, so before we get into the sort of slightly meatier discussion of the things that Jodie's highlighted on the willingness to lead framework, we thought we would just reflect a little bit on what we mean by leadership in EAP, and this kind of links back to the previous SIG when Clark was introducing this. What makes successful EAP leadership? What are the barriers and opportunities for leadership in EAP? What do we mean by leadership in EAP? And I guess we can think about that in any way. We might think about, you know, individual qualities or individual abilities in terms of being a successful leader. We might think about successful teams and relationships that work well together. We might think about EAP leadership being very different in different contexts, whether that's institutions or countries or whatever situations. But yeah, we just wanted to invite you to think about defining what we all mean by EAP leadership and successful EAP leadership and what gets in the way of that for us. So if you would like to, shall I stop sharing that?
Yeah, so we can see people.
If I just take the share off for a minute, and we just invite you to add something in the chat or to raise your hand or whatever happens on Zoom. I can't really remember now. To join in a bit of discussion around that initial idea. That would be great. Let's see my chat now. I'm not sure if it is hands up or I mean, Caroline. Oh, it's Caroline got a hand up. Yes, Caroline. Go ahead.
Can I do it physically and not technically?
Yes, I can't see any emojis.
I think there's two things that spring to mind. One is the importance of timing. And by that, I mean, I remember when Alex Ding joined us and he was talking about the context of scholarship and how it will kind of ebb and flow depending on what else is going on in your life. And there are times when you're going, you know, full throttle, you're enjoying it, and then other times you might feel a bit blocked. So I think timing is important. And the other thing for me is colleagues wanting to be led. Because if they don't want to be led, that's very, very difficult. Or if they are in any way suspicious of your motives, or they think you've got some agenda going on, that makes it really difficult in my experience.
Right, yeah.
I hope that's helpful.
Yeah.
It is. Thank you for starting off the discussion, Caroline.
Yeah.
2 points there.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else like to contribute to what Caroline said or anything else? Oh yeah, so in terms of success, is it about relationship beyond the EAP team and ability to influence senior leadership? Yeah, I think that's something that is really worth talking about, because one of the aspects of successful EAP leadership may be making our presence felt in the institution or in the situation, and leading those people who've got the decision-making abilities, or
It is about visibility, isn't it?
Right, yeah, that's a nice way of thinking about that. Yeah. And that's different from leading, like Caroline's talking maybe about leading our colleagues, and this is about leading up, isn't it? And being successful in those relationships. Sophie?
One thing that I was just thinking is that, do we need to think about two different kinds of leadership here? One, which is developmental leadership, which kind of doesn't step on anyone's toes. It doesn't require anyone to necessarily make changes in what they've been doing so far, but just add on, and then actually leading change, which I believe is a lot trickier, is a lot more difficult to lead change, which kind of encroaches on people's professional practice and requires them to rethink what they're doing. And I wonder if it's worth making a distinction between those two types of, or those two areas of leadership, simply because of the complications involved in changing behavior as opposed to kind of developing behavior. Am I making sense?
Yes, totally.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's always very sensitive, isn't it? Change management. very difficult in any setting, I think.
And then sometimes that's managing things that have been imposed from somewhere else or requested from somewhere else, which again is different from managing things that may be a project that, you know, you genuinely believe in and want to get off the ground, kind of negotiating those two things within the context that we work. Yeah, it's very particular to EAP. And yeah, Elizabeth said in the chat about EAP itself not being considered a core subject by the people who, again, are the decision makers or have the capital or whatever. Yeah. So then it's about the credibility of our profession or our practice, isn't it? Yeah. Anything else anyone wants to add?
I didn't know if Naima wanted to say anything about the concept of flow.
Oh, yeah.
I guess, is that from an individual standpoint? I'm familiar with I can never say the Hungarian name, so.
Thank you. It's just that I always found it, I'm not an EAP leader at the moment, and I'm sure I wish to be. But it was about getting us, the team, in a state of flow. And of course, you know, individuals would be at different stages. It's a concept from the 70s. I was trying to find the right link to put in there because Mihali's work is, I'm sure most people have come across it. So that really helps because it helps with motivation. And you know, to find that extra bit of energy. Yes, synergy. Yes, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, thank you.
I think, yeah, sorry, I typed that one in there.
Yeah,
Sorry, it's not Irene.
I'll take the credit, it's fine.
Because I was thinking of flow as more this sort of individual endeavor, and then synergy is more this team, this relational aspect, I think. Yeah. Jennifer's got a hand up.
Oh, you're mute.
So 2020,
Yeah.
you're on mute.
You're on mute, Jennifer.
Oh,
Okay, I'm unmuted, yeah.
fantastic, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess, I mean, you talked a lot about context, and I think that's right, that there are so many different contexts in which leadership can exist, if we stick with EAP. And that the distinguishing leadership from management is something that's really important. However, there can be an expectation within leadership that you're doing management as well. And what I've found often in EAP is that you're constrained in a little bit, or you can be constrained because although there might be an expectation for you to take on management roles, it's unlikely that you're going to be somebody's line manager. Or very few people will be somebody's line manager. So that causes all sorts of discussion about what exactly your role is as a leader. And something else that I've noticed with people that I've worked with, sort of taking on leadership roles, is that because of this kind of tension between leadership and management, there's also a tension between collegiality or being a colleague and being a leader. To what extent do you become in some way distant, whether that's physically or emotionally, from the people that you've been working with? And so there's all sorts of aspects coming in the interactional and interrelational and psychological things going on. And one last thing I wanted to say was, I think Caroline mentioned this idea of almost readiness for it, but of course leadership or positions are often imposed upon us not only by others, but by ourselves. I mean, if we look in higher education at our promotion criteria, etc., I think, well, certainly in Glasgow, that is one criteria which you have to fulfill and show that you're developing in that area. So it's not always a choice to take on those roles. So for me, there's just so much there to unpack. I guess I was just have to think.
There really is.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
That's really interesting. And I think that, that's kind of the mix there between formal and informal roles as well, because you're taking on, say, leadership of a team. And as you say, but there isn't line management in there, so you people might perceive a tension there between what the leadership role is, and I mean, and there's lots of nice things about that, I guess. It's nice to lead a team that's, what's the word? Flat. It's nice to lead a team which is kind of, in theory, non-hierarchical, but then it brings new challenges around who you are and what you're doing there and what your kind of remit is, especially if it's something that's been sort of imposed upon you. So, and I thought there was an interesting connection between what you said there and Naeem's mentioned about time-limited leadership on pre-sessionals. That just made me think as well that the demands of those things are so different, because the demands of running successfully a short summer, high intensity, high stakes, for want of a better word, course is very different and just as important as that kind of managing up through the institution on a slow burn of leadership, like trying to develop in-sessional provision or relationships. And those are two quite different kind of experiences of leadership within the profession.
Definitely.
Oh, John, yes.
Who was first? I don't know.
I don't know. John, do you want to go first and then Alison?
Yeah, no, I was just picking up on what Jennifer and Caroline said. Caroline's point about if people want to be led, and Jennifer's point about sort of similar issues. My experience with leadership issues is it's very pleasurable when the team is on the up, when things are going well. But certainly in EAP, when things go badly, it's a nightmare position to be in, because you become you become the kind of incarnation of the university, and suddenly you're taking a lot of hits. And just to pick up on that last point about the pre-sessional leadership, that's a kind of rotational leadership, and it's quite nice to be in a team where the leadership roles rotate, because then you have a vested interest in being respectful and positive, because you're going to go back into the pack next time round. I know in the States, a lot of academic departments have a head of department which rotates, and people do it for 2 years. They don't particularly want to do it, but it rotates, and then people go back and out of that leadership role. It's not a permanent thing.
Yeah, I like that metaphor, Naima. Yes.
Alison?
I was just sort of adding on again. I was just thinking about the short-term leadership roles, like, for example, the pre-sessional roles and things like that. And I think it's about the judgment of the team as well, and how. So I think if you are a successful leader in that role, you're making their life efficient, you're making their life effective. But on the long burn sort of leadership side, on the other side, on a long term, say a year, 2 year, or whatever, there it's very much about advocacy and the transparency of advocacy, and that's the problematic bit. And I think short-term leadership has a lot of wins, a lot of hits, and it can be very positive. Long-term it's a little bit sometimes like walking on eggshells. Because of that, even if it is rotational, you're suddenly stepping into a role where you have to divorce yourself a little bit. And in order to have transparency, you have to divorce yourself, and that's a very tricky thing to be able to do. I remember my first leadership role, not in EAP but in EFL. I made a big mistake of keeping everybody as friends.
Mhm.
And it just didn't work when I needed things to happen. It was, I didn't have that authority. That sounds like a bad word to use, but there wasn't that sort of, I hadn't gained enough respect from them to actually lead.
It's reflecting back to Caroline a little bit at the very beginning, saying about people resistant to being led, whatever that kind of means, and whatever that, yeah.
This is really good for our first reflection.